bride learns groom's secret moments before the wedding, but she knows how to get even. Emily felt her heart race as she adjusted her veil one last time. In just a few minutes, she would be walking down the aisle of St. Patrick's Cathedral in the heart of New York City to marry Michael, the man who had won her heart over the past 2 years. That's when she heard male voices on the other side of the bridal suite door. Michael's unmistakable voice was talking to his best man, Jason, in a hushed but audible tone, just loud enough for her to catch every word. "Dude, are you sure she doesn't suspect anything?" Jason asked nervously. "Relax, man. Emily's too naive. She believes everything I say. In a few hours, I'll officially be the husband of the Williams Carter heiress, and in 6 months, when her dear old grandma passes away, we'll be rich." Michael chuckled softly. Emily felt the floor drop beneath her. Her legs trembled, and she had to steady herself against the antique dresser that had once belonged to her great-grandmother. Every word was like a knife to her chest. "What if Mrs. Margaret finds out? That woman is sharp," Jason continued. "Barbara's been playing the part of my mother perfectly. 2 years in this role, and Emily never suspected I hired an actress, and Samantha already took care of all the fake documents about my poor background. Everything's under control." Emily's blood boiled. She remembered all the times Michael had told his sob stories about being an orphan, growing up in foster care, about Barbara being the only family he had left. She remembered the tears she'd shed over those lies, how her heart had broken with pity for him. "And after you get the money?" the best man asked. "Then I ditch her and stay with Samantha. She's the one who really gets me. Emily's too proper, too innocent. Not my type for the long run." Emily's hands shook with rage. Samantha, she knew that name. The businesswoman Michael claimed was just a client for his consulting services. How many times had she asked about those late-night meetings, and he always had an excuse ready. "Is the priest at the altar yet?" Michael asked. "That actor Samantha recommended. He's already there, dressed and everything. No one will suspect he's fake. The wedding will be valid on paper, but in reality..." Emily covered her mouth to stifle a cry of outrage. Even the priest was fake. This whole wedding was an elaborate scheme to steal her inheritance. She thought of her 85-year-old grandmother, Margaret, who had been so excited for the wedding, the wisest woman she knew, who had always given her the best advice, and was now out there beaming with joy to see her granddaughter get married. For a moment, Emily considered running out, screaming the truth, cancelling everything. But then an idea began to form in her mind, one that made her eyes gleam with a determination she didn't know she had. If Michael wanted to play dirty, she'd show him too could play that game, and she'd play it better. Emily took a deep breath and composed herself. She smoothed the white silk dress that had cost a fortune and checked her makeup in the mirror. She couldn't let on that she'd discovered everything. Not yet. The voices outside the door faded. She waited a few more minutes before leaving the room, just enough time to sketch out a plan. Her mind, always sharp when it came to the family business, now worked at full speed to craft something Michael would never see coming. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now, continuing. When the door finally opened, Emily found her mother, Catherine, and her godmother, Jennifer, anxiously waiting in the hallway. "My dear, you look beautiful," Catherine exclaimed, her eyes glistening. "Your father and grandmother are so emotional downstairs." "Thank you, Mom," Emily managed to smile, though inside she was boiling with anger. "Could you give me a few minutes? I want to talk to Grandma Margaret before the ceremony." "Of course, sweetheart. We'll let them know you're on your way," Jennifer said, kissing her goddaughter's forehead. As soon as she was alone again, Emily grabbed her phone and quickly typed a message to her brother Daniel. "I need to talk to you urgently. Come to the bridal suite now. It's about Michael." Daniel was 3 years older and had always been her protector. He worked as a lawyer for the family firm and had a sharp instinct for shady people. Emily remembered how he'd expressed doubts about Michael from the start of their relationship, but she'd been so in love she refused to listen. In less than 5 minutes, Daniel knocked on the door. What's wrong?" "You look pale," he said, using her childhood nickname. "Daniel, you were right about Michael. "I just found out he's a con artist," she said bluntly, without mincing words. Daniel closed the door behind him and stepped closer to his sister. "What did you find out?" Emily recounted everything she'd overheard, every word of the conversation between Michael and Jason. She watched her brother's expression shift from shock to outrage. "We're canceling this wedding right now. I'll call security and—" "No," she interrupted, surprising him. "We're not canceling anything." "What do you mean? You can't marry that—" "Oh, I'm going to marry him. But not as the naive victim he thinks I am. Daniel, I need your help to do this the right way." Emily quickly outlined her initial plan. She wanted to expose Michael publicly, in front of all the guests, in a way that would ensure he could never pull this scam on another woman. "Are you sure about this, Em? It's really risky," Daniel said, concerned. "I am. He fooled me for 2 years, Daniel. 2 years of my life I gave to a liar. And worse, he's planning to use our family, our grandmother, to get money. I won't allow that." Daniel took a deep breath. He knew his sister well enough to understand that once she made up her mind, especially when she felt wronged, nothing would change it. "What do you need me to do?" "First, during the ceremony, I want you to watch for any suspicious moves from Michael or Jason. Second, I need you to find a way to record everything without them noticing. And third, after the ceremony at the reception, you'll help me confront every person involved in this scheme." "Em, are you sure you want to do this at your own wedding, in front of our entire family and friends?" "Daniel, this isn't my wedding, it's a sham. And if there's one thing Grandma Margaret always taught us, it's that lies have short legs. Today, Michael's legs are going to break." Just then, someone knocked on the door. It was Jennifer again. "Emily, sweetheart, it's time. Your father is waiting to walk you in." "I'll be right there, Godmother," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She turned to Daniel. "Ready to watch your sister serve revenge in a way he'll never forget?" Daniel smiled for the first time since entering the room. He'd recognized that determined look in his sister's eyes since they were kids. When Emily decided to fight for something, she always found a way to win. "Let's finish this guy," he said, kissing his sister's forehead. Emily adjusted her veil one last time and left the room. In the cathedral hallways, she greeted relatives and friends who were eagerly waiting for her. Everyone remarked on how beautiful she looked, how radiant she was. If only they knew what was going through her mind at that moment. When she reached the main hall of the cathedral, she saw Michael at the altar, elegant in his black tuxedo. He smiled when he saw her, that same smile that had won her heart 2 years ago. But now, knowing the truth behind that smile, Emily felt nothing but disgust. Beside him stood Barbara, dabbing her teary eyes with a handkerchief. The actress was playing her role perfectly, portraying the proud and emotional mother-in-law. Emily wondered how much Michael was paying for that performance. "You look stunning, my dear," said her father, William, offering his arm to escort her to the altar. "Thank you, Dad," she replied, trying to sound natural. As she walked down the aisle, Emily glanced at the guests. 200 people had been invited to witness what was supposed to be a celebration of true love. College friends, co-workers, distant relatives, neighbors, all of them believing in the charade. Her eyes met those of her grandmother Margaret, seated in the front row. The 85-year-old woman was beaming, her eyes shining with happiness. Margaret had been married for 60 years to Emily's grandfather, Richard, who had passed away 5 years earlier. She was the person Emily knew who understood true love best. When she finally reached the altar, Michael extended his hand to her. Emily took it, though inside she had to restrain herself from pulling away. "You look breathtaking," he whispered in her ear. "Thank you," she replied, forcing a smile. The man posing as the priest began the ceremony. Emily barely paid attention to his words. Her mind was focused on what was to come. She had decided that during the vows, she would plant the first seed of her revenge. "Now comes the time for personal vows," the fake priest announced. "Michael, would you like to begin?" Michael pulled a piece of paper from his pocket and began to read. "Emily, from the very first day I met you, I knew you were special. Your kindness, your generosity, the way you see the world, it completely won me over. I promise to love you, protect you, and make you happy every day of our lives. I promise to be the husband you deserve and to build a family with you based on love and trust." Every word sounded like a cruel joke to Emily's ears. He spoke of love and trust while plotting to rob her. He spoke of protection while preparing to destroy her emotionally. "Emily, your vows," said the fake priest. Emily took a deep breath. This was the moment. She set aside the paper with the vows she had written weeks earlier and decided to improvise. "Michael," she began, looking directly into his eyes, "when we first met, you told me so many stories about your life, stories that moved me deeply and made me fall in love, not just with you, but with the person I believed you were." Michael smiled, unsure where she was going with this. "Today, in front of all these people we love, I promise that I will truly get to know you. I will uncover who you really are beneath all these layers. I promise our life together will be full of surprises, surprises you might not be expecting." A low murmur spread through the cathedral. Some guests found the vows odd, but most chalked it up to the emotion of the moment. Michael, however, seemed to detect something different in Emily's tone. His smile faltered for just an instant. "I also promise," continued Emily, "that I will honor our family, especially my dear grandmother Margaret, and protect everything she and my grandfather built with so much love and dedication. And I promise that no matter what happens, the truth will always prevail between us." Jason, the best man, exchanged a nervous glance with Michael. There was something about the way Emily spoke that didn't seem right. "You may kiss the bride," announced the fake priest. Michael kissed Emily, but she kept her eyes open, watching his reaction. When they pulled apart, she whispered something only he could hear. "I hope you're ready for the surprises waiting for you, my dear husband." The color drained from Michael's face. He tried to hide it, but Emily saw the flash of panic in his eyes. As they walked out of the church amid applause and a shower of rose petals, Emily waved at the guests with a radiant smile. On the outside, she was the happiest bride in the world. On the inside, she was carefully planning every move of her revenge. The reception would be held in the event hall of the Plaza Hotel in New York City, which the family had rented for the occasion. On the way from the church to the hotel, Michael tried several times to make conversation, but Emily gave only one-word answers, pretending to be too emotional to speak. At the hotel, while the guests settled into the main hall, Emily asked for a few minutes to touch up her makeup. In truth, she needed time to finalize the preparations for her revenge. Daniel accompanied her to the bridal suite reserved at the hotel. "How did you manage to stay so calm during the ceremony?" he asked, impressed. "I was thinking about the look on his face when he realizes he completely underestimated the wife he just married," Emily replied, pulling her phone from her purse. She quickly typed out a series of messages. The first was to the bank manager, where she kept her accounts. "Mr. Robert, as we discussed yesterday, I authorized the transfer of 80% of the funds from all my accounts to the charities we talked about. Please process the transaction today." The second message was to the private investigator she had hired 3 months ago when she first began to suspect Michael. "Dr. Frank, you may proceed with the plan we discussed. I need all the evidence ready in 2 hours." You hired a detective?" Daniel was stunned. 3 months ago. I didn't want to believe my suspicions, but my gut told me something was wrong, Doctor. Frank got evidence of everything. Michael's fake identity, his scheme with Samantha, the forged documents, even Barbara's real profession. "And you didn't tell me anything?" "I wanted absolute certainty before involving the family, and I wanted to give him a chance to redeem himself in case my suspicions were wrong. But after what I heard today..." Just then, someone knocked on the door. It was Barbara, the fake mother-in-law. "May I come in, dear?" she asked in her sweet, affectionate voice. Emily and Daniel exchanged a glance. This was the perfect opportunity to start exposing the scheme. "Of course, Mrs. Barbara. Come in," Emily said, gesturing to a chair. Barbara entered and closed the door behind her. She was a woman who appeared to be in her 60s, with neatly styled grey hair and a maternal demeanor that had won over the entire Williams-Carter family. "Emily, dear, I wanted to thank you for welcoming me so warmly into the family. You have no idea how much this means to me, especially after everything Michael and I have been through, Barbara said, wiping away tears that seemed genuine. Mrs. Barbara, Emily began, keeping her tone sweet. Could you tell me again how you met Michael? I'm so moved. I'd love to record this story for our future children. Barbara seemed surprised by the request, but quickly composed herself. Of course, dear. As you know, I worked at the orphanage where Michael grew up. When he turned 18 and had to leave, I informally adopted him. I didn't have children and he needed a family. How beautiful, said Emily, recording everything on her phone. And the name of the orphanage was St. Mary's, Barbara answered quickly. And how many years did you work there? 15 years. Barbara seemed to be getting nervous with so many questions. Emily smiled inwardly. The detective had discovered there had never been an orphanage called St. Mary's in the city Michael claimed to have grown up in. Mrs. Barbara, may I ask you a personal question? Emily changed her tone, becoming more serious. Of course, dear. How much is Michael paying you to pretend to be his mother? The silence that followed was deafening. Barbara turned pale, and Daniel positioned himself near the door to prevent any attempt to escape. I don't know what you're talking about, Barbara stammered. Mrs. Barbara, or should I call you by your real name, Mrs. Eleanor Davis, retired actress specializing in maternal roles. Emily showed a photo on her phone. It was a picture of Barbara from 20 years ago in a play, with her real name in the credits. Barbara slumped into the chair, all masks falling at once. How did you find out? She asked weakly. What matters is that I did. Now I want you to tell me everything. And depending on your cooperation, maybe I'll consider not including you in the lawsuit I'm filing against everyone involved in this scheme. Barbara looked at Daniel, who watched her with a serious expression, then at Emily, who stared at her with unwavering determination. Michael came to me 2 years ago, she began, her voice trembling. I was struggling financially after retiring. He said he needed someone for a simple role, one that wouldn't hurt anyone. How much is he paying? Daniel asked. $5,000 a month plus a $50,000 bonus after the wedding, Barbara confessed. And what else do you know about his plan? Emily pressed. I know he has a real girlfriend, Samantha. I know he forged all the documents about his background, and I know that... She hesitated. Go on, Emily insisted. I know the plan is to gain access to your bank accounts and your grandmother's inheritance. After that, he plans to separate from you, citing incompatibility, and take half of everything. Emily felt a chill in her stomach. She knew Michael was opportunistic, but hearing the confirmation of the entire elaborate scheme still hurt. Is anyone else involved besides Samantha? Daniel asked. Jason, the best man, knows everything. He handles the financial side of the scheme, and there's also the... Barbara stopped again. What? Emily insisted. The priest who officiated the ceremony. He's not a real priest. He's another actor Samantha hired. The marriage isn't valid. Emily took a deep breath. Even though she already knew this, hearing the confirmation was different. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Mrs. Barbara, or rather Eleanor, Emily said, you're going to help me expose this scheme today at the party. Or in return, I won't sue you, and I'll even help you find honest work as an actress. But if I do this, Michael will sue me for breach of contract, Barbara said, terrified. Michael will have much bigger problems to worry about than a lawsuit against you, Daniel assured her. Barbara fell silent for a few moments, weighing her options. What do you want me to do? She finally asked. First thing, I'm going to give you a small recorder. I want you to provoke Michael and Jason into talking about the scheme during the party. Second thing, when I give the signal, you'll tell all the guests the truth about who you really are. And the third? Barbara asked. The third is that you'll help me identify everyone else involved in this, because I'm certain Michael didn't set this up alone. Daniel handed Barbara a small recorder he'd gotten from a journalist friend. Eleanor, you're doing the right thing, he said. My sister is a good person. She'll keep her word. Barbara nodded, still nervous but seemingly determined to cooperate. "Michael can't find out you know," she warned. "He's capable of anything when cornered." "What kind of anything?" Emily asked, concerned. "I've seen him physically attack people who confronted him, and Jason is even worse. You need to be careful." Emily and Daniel exchanged a worried look. They hadn't considered the possibility of Michael reacting violently. "Don't worry," Daniel said. "I have some friends from law school who work as private security. They'll be at the party disguised as waiters." "You planned this already?" Emily asked, surprised. I never trusted Michael. I asked some friends to come to the party just as a precaution. Now I see it was the right call." Just then, someone knocked on the door again. It was Jennifer, the godmother. "Emily, dear, the guests are waiting for your toast," she called from the hallway. "We're coming, godmother," Emily replied. She turned to Barbara. "Eleanor, go back to the party as if nothing happened. Keep playing your role until I give the signal. And remember, record everything you can." Barbara nodded and left the room, slipping back into the maternal demeanor she'd maintained for 2 years. Daniel moved closer to his sister. Are you sure you want to do this? We can still leave and handle this privately." "Daniel, how many other women do you think Michael has deceived? How many more will he trick if I do nothing? No, I'm exposing this scheme in front of everyone. It'll set an example so other women don't fall into the same trap." Emily adjusted her dress and checked her makeup in the mirror one last time. "Besides," she continued, "our family and friends deserve the truth. They came here believing they were celebrating true love. They deserve to know they've been deceived too." Daniel smiled, proud of his sister's courage. "Then let's show this Michael who he's dealing with." When they reached the main hall, the party was in full swing. Tables were decorated with white and gold flowers. The dance floor was lively, and the bar served the finest drinks. Everything was perfect, like a fairy tale setting. Michael approached as soon as he saw Emily. "Where were you, love?" "Everyone's asking for the bride," he said, slipping his arm around her waist. "I was talking to your mother," Emily replied, watching his reaction. "She told me some very interesting stories about you." Michael tensed for a moment but quickly recovered. "Oh, Barbara loves reminiscing," he said with a forced laugh. "I hope she didn't bore you with too many details." "On the contrary, I found it all very enlightening." Just then, Jason approached the couple. "Michael, we need to sort out that bank paperwork," he said, oblivious to his poor timing. "What paperwork?" Emily asked innocently. "Nothing important, love," Michael replied quickly. "Jason, we'll talk about this later." But Jason, apparently nervous, continued, "It's just that the bank manager called today saying he needed more information about our financial situation to process some documents." Michael gave Jason a discreet elbow, trying to make him stop talking. "How strange," said Emily. "I spoke to the bank manager today too, about a transfer I made." "What transfer?" Michael asked, trying to keep his tone casual, but Emily could see the nervousness in his eyes. "Nothing important," she said, using his same words. "We'll talk about it later." For the next 2 hours, Emily moved around the party, observing everything and everyone. She chatted with relatives, thanked friends for their congratulations, and danced with her father and Daniel. On the outside, she was the perfect bride celebrating the happiest day of her life. But inside, she was mapping every move of Michael and his accomplices. She saw Jason talking nervously on the phone several times. She saw Barbara playing the part of the proud mother-in-law perfectly, but she could sense the tension in her gestures. And then she saw something that made her blood boil again. A blonde woman, elegantly dressed, entered the hall. Emily recognized her immediately from the photos the detective had taken. It was Samantha, Michael's real girlfriend. Samantha greeted some guests as if she were a family friend, but Emily saw her and Michael exchange a meaningful glance. A glance that should have been shared between the bride and groom, not the groom and a guest. Emily approached the table where Daniel was sitting. "Samantha's here," she whispered. "Where?" Daniel asked, playing it cool. "Back table, gold dress. She's talking to Uncle George like she's known him for years." Daniel glanced discreetly in that direction. "Wow, she's a good actress too. She looks completely at ease." "That's why this scheme has worked for so long," Emily said. They're all very convincing." At that moment, the band stopped playing, and the MC announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the speeches. Let's begin with the bride's parents." William, Emily's father, stood up and walked to the microphone. He was a 65-year-old man, respected in New York City's business community. "My dear friends and family," he began, "today is a day of great joy for our family. Seeing our Emily so happy and radiant is a dream come true." Emily felt a pang of guilt, seeing the genuine emotion in her father's face. He truly believed he was celebrating his daughter's happiness. "Michael," William continued, looking at his son-in-law, "thank you for making our daughter so happy. Welcome to the Williams-Carter family." Michael stood up and waved, smiling charmingly at the guests. "Now," said the MC, "let's hear from the groom's mother, Mrs. Barbara." Barbara stood up slowly, visibly nervous. Emily watched her closely, waiting to see what she would do. "My dears," Barbara began in a shaky voice, "you have no idea how emotional it is for me to be here today." She paused, looking directly at Emily. "For a long time, Michael and I faced many hardships, but today, seeing him marry a woman as wonderful as Emily, I feel all our performances were worth it." A low murmur spread among the guests. The word performances sounded odd in this context. Michael turned pale. He sensed something was wrong but didn't know exactly what. "I want to thank the Williams-Carter family for welcoming me with open arms, even though I was a complete stranger to you until 2 years ago," Barbara continued. Now people were really confused. What did Barbara mean by complete stranger? "Mrs. Barbara, are you all right?" asked Catherine, Emily's mother, concerned. Barbara looked at Emily, who nodded discreetly. That was the signal. "Actually," Barbara said, her voice firmer now, "I have a confession to make." The room fell completely silent. Every eye was fixed on Barbara. "My name isn't Barbara. It's Eleanor Davis. I'm a professional actress, and I was hired by Michael 2 years ago to play the role of his mother." The impact of her words was immediate. Shouts of surprise echoed through the room. Michael stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair. "This woman is insane," he yelled. "We don't know why she's saying this." But Eleanor continued. "Michael isn't an orphan. He didn't grow up in an orphanage. The entire story you've been told about his life is an elaborate lie to deceive Emily and gain access to her family's fortune." Chaos erupted in the room. Relatives stood up, friends shouted questions, and some people tried to leave. Emily rose calmly and walked to the microphone. "May I speak, please?" she asked, with a composure that surprised everyone. Gradually, silence returned. They all wanted to hear what the bride had to say about this outrageous accusation. "My dear friends and family," Emily began, "I know you're all confused and shocked. I was too, until this morning." She paused, letting the tension build. "Today, just minutes before the ceremony, I discovered my marriage was nothing more than an elaborate scam to steal my family's money." Murmurs rose again, louder this time. "Michael!" William shouted, standing up furiously. "What is the meaning of this?" Michael was cornered. He glanced at Jason, who was already trying to discreetly make his way to the exit, but was stopped by the undercover security guards Daniel had hired. "Emily, you're delusional," Michael argued. "This woman is clearly having some kind of psychotic episode." "You're right," Emily said calmly. "Eleanor could be lying. That's why I brought more evidence." She motioned to Daniel, who approached with a laptop. "Everyone, I'm going to show you some interesting things I discovered about my dear husband," Emily said, connecting the laptop to the party's projector. The first image on the screen was a birth certificate. This is Michael's real birth certificate. You can see his mother's name isn't Barbara. It's Ellen Foster, and she's alive, living in Rochester. Gasps of shock filled the room. "This next photo," Emily continued, "was taken 3 days ago. It shows Michael entering the apartment of his real girlfriend, Samantha Wilson Miller, where he's lived for 2 years. The photo clearly showed Michael using keys to enter a luxurious apartment. Samantha, who had been trying to blend in with the guests, turned pale when she saw her picture on the screen. And this," Emily showed the next image, "is a signed contract between Michael and our dear Eleanor here, where he agrees to pay her $70,000 for her acting services. The evidence was irrefutable. The document was clearly dated and signed. Michael was desperate. He turned to Jason, who was being closely watched by security. "Jason, do something," he whispered urgently. But Jason was in total panic and couldn't think straight. "There's more," Emily said. "This recording was made this morning, right before the ceremony." Michael's voice echoed clearly through the room's sound system. "Relax, man. Emily is too naive. She believes everything I say. In a few hours, I'll officially be the husband of the Williams Carter heiress. And in 6 months, when her grandma kicks the bucket, we'll be rich." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret, Emily's grandmother, sat in the front row with tears in her eyes, not of joy but of deep sadness and disappointment. William approached Michael with fury in his gaze. "You wretched man, how dare you?" he shouted. Daniel stepped between his father and Michael, fearing the situation might escalate into violence. "Dad, let me handle this," he said. "We have to do this the right way." Emily returned to the microphone. "There's more," she said. "For these past 2 years, Michael forged documents, lied about his identity, hired an actor to pose as a priest, and made me believe we were marrying in the eyes of the church when in reality the marriage isn't even valid." She paused to let the information sink in. "But do you know what hurts the most?" Her voice faltered for the first time. "It's not just the money. It's the fact that he played with the feelings of an entire family. My parents, my grandmother, my brother, all of you. Everyone believed a lie." Tears streamed down Emily's face, but she continued. "For 2 years, I loved a man who never existed. For 2 years, our family welcomed someone into our home, into our hearts, who was planning to destroy us." The emotion in Emily's voice spread through the room. Many were crying, others were furious. Michael, seeing no way out, tried one last desperate move. "Fine," he shouted. "It's true, I lied about some things, but I really fell in love with you, Emily. What started as a plan turned into real love." "Liar!" Samantha yelled from the back of the room, unable to hold back any longer. "Just yesterday you were planning to divorce her as soon as you got the money." Everyone turned to look at Samantha, who realized too late that she had given herself away. "Oh, so the girlfriend is here too," Emily said bitterly. "How convenient." Samantha tried to run, but the security guard stopped her. Samantha Wilson Miller, businesswoman, 34, has been Michael's real girlfriend for 3 years, Emily announced. She funded this scheme and hired the fake priest. Margaret, Emily's grandmother, rose slowly. Everyone respected the family matriarch, and the room fell completely silent. "Michael," she said firmly but sadly, "you have no idea the harm you've done to this family. Not just financially, but emotionally." She walked toward him, leaning on her cane. "My granddaughter is a wonderful, generous young woman who welcomed you with an open heart into our family, and you abused that trust in the vilest way possible." "Mrs. Margaret, Michael tried to speak. "You don't have the right to say my name," she interrupted. "You plan to take advantage of my death to steal what my husband and I built, over 60 years of honest work." Margaret turned to the guests. "My dear friends and family, I apologize that you had to witness this, but perhaps it's good you saw it, so you can bear witness to the truth." She turned back to Michael. "As for you, young man, I hope you learned something today. I hope you understand there are things in life money can't buy: dignity, respect, and true love." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now continuing. At that moment, Daniel approached the microphone. "Everyone, please listen," he said. "My sister uncovered this scheme months ago and, with the help of a private investigator, gathered enough evidence to sue everyone involved." He looked directly at Michael, Samantha, and Jason. "The 3 of you are being sued for document forgery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The evidence has already been handed over to the proper authorities." "You can't prove anything!" Jason shouted desperately. "Actually, we can," said Emily, returning to the microphone. "Over these past 3 months, the detective documented everything. Michael's visits to Samantha's apartment, Your meetings to plan the scheme, the phone calls, everything. She nodded again to Daniel, who held up a thick folder. Besides, Emily continued, you signed several fake documents that can easily be verified, and there are other victims who have already come forward. Other victims? Asked William, surprised. Yes, Dad. During the investigation, we discovered this isn't the first scam they've pulled. There are at least 3 other women who were deceived by similar schemes over the last 5 years. Samantha tried to speak, but Emily cut her off. No, Samantha. Nothing you say now will make a difference. The detective has recordings of you planning this scam from the very beginning. Emily turned back to the guests. I know all of you are shocked and confused. I'm still processing all of this myself. But I want you to know I'll use this experience to help other women avoid going through what I did. She paused, taking a deep breath. Starting tomorrow, I'll establish a foundation to educate women about emotional and financial scams. I'll use part of my inheritance to create a support center for victims of these crimes. The guests began to applaud. Even in the midst of personal tragedy, Emily was turning her pain into something positive. And as for you 3, she addressed the scammers, I hope you learned something from this, the money you wanted so badly. I transferred 80% of all my assets to charity this morning. Even if you'd managed to legally marry me, you would have gotten nothing. The revelation was like a slap in the face to Michael. He'd wasted 2 years of his life on a scheme that, in the end, yielded nothing. You spent 2 years of your lives, hired actors, forged documents, lied to dozens of people, all for nothing, Emily said with bitter irony. At that moment, several people entered the hall. They were other detectives and professionals who had been waiting outside. Michael Roberts Johnson, Samantha Wilson Miller, and Jason Evans Thompson, announced one of the men. You're being taken in for questioning regarding charges of fraud and document forgery. As the 3 were escorted out of the hall, Samantha screamed, This isn't over. We'll sue all of you for defamation. Be our guest, Daniel replied. Our lawyers are looking forward to having some fun with that lawsuit. After the scammers left, the hall fell into heavy silence. The guests didn't know how to react to such an unprecedented situation. Emily returned to the microphone one last time. My dear friends and family, she said, her voice weary, I know this isn't the party ending you expected, but I want to thank you all for being here. Without even realizing it, you gave me the strength to do what was right. She looked especially at Margaret. Grandma, thank you for teaching me that the truth always prevails, and that dignity is something no one can take from us. Margaret stepped forward and embraced her granddaughter. My dear, I'm so proud of your courage, she whispered. Your grandfather Richard would be proud too. One by one, people began approaching Emily to offer support and comfort. Her college friends, her cousins, the family neighbors, everyone wanted to show they were on her side. Emily, said Mrs. Martha, a friend of Margaret's, you're a very brave young woman. What you did today will protect so many other women. It's true, agreed Dr. Charles, a family friend for decades. Your father and grandmother must be very proud. Slowly, the atmosphere in the hall began to change. What had started as a wedding celebration that turned into a nightmare was now becoming a different kind of celebration, one of courage, truth, and justice. Some people began to leave, but many stayed to support the family. The band, initially unsure of what to do, received Emily's permission to keep playing soft music. Said Jennifer, her godmother, do you want me to ask them to pack everything up? No, Emily replied, surprising everyone. Let's keep the party going. I won't let him ruin this night too, not with the people I love. And so the celebration continued. It was no longer a wedding reception, but a celebration of liberation. People talked about what had happened, offered support to the family, and gradually the mood lightened. Emily kicked off her high heels and danced barefoot with her father, with Daniel, with Margaret, and with several friends. For the first time in months, she felt truly free. How did you keep this a secret for so long? Asked Jessica, her best friend from college. It was really hard, Emily admitted. There were times I wanted to tell someone, especially when I first found the evidence, but I knew I had to be absolutely sure before making any accusations. And how do you feel now? Asked Kimberly, her closest cousin. Emily thought for a moment before answering. Hurt, betrayed, humiliated, but also relieved and strangely proud of myself, she said. For 2 years I doubted my instincts. There were signs something wasn't right, but I kept making excuses for his strange behavior. What kind of signs? Jessica asked curiously. Small things, really. He never introduced me to any childhood friends. Never had any childhood photos to show me. The stories he told about his past were always vague. And Barbara, she knew way too much about our family for someone who had just met us. Kimberly shook her head. It's unbelievable how these con artists study their victims, she remarked. That's what shocked me most when I spoke to the detective, Emily said. They knew about our finances, our family's habits, our routines. This wasn't some impulsive scam. It was carefully planned. At that moment, Eleanor approached the group hesitantly. Emily, can I talk to you for a moment? She asked. Emily nodded to her friends and stepped aside with Eleanor. I want to apologize, Eleanor said, tears in her eyes. I know money doesn't excuse what I did, but I was truly desperate. My retirement didn't even cover my medication. Eleanor, you did the right thing today by telling the truth, Emily replied. And I'll keep my word. I'll help you find honest work as an actress. Why are you being so kind to me? I helped deceive you, Emily sighed. Because I understand you were also a victim in a way. Michael took advantage of your vulnerable situation, just like he took advantage of my trust. The difference is, you had the courage to do what was right when it mattered. Eleanor wept harder. You're a very special person, Emily. I hope you find someone who truly deserves you. Thank you, Eleanor, and I hope you find a way to start over honestly, too. As the night went on, several people approached Emily with their own stories of suspicious relationships or scams they had fallen victim to. Emily, said Mrs. Barbara Cooper, a friend of Margaret, 3 years ago, a man tried to pull a similar scam on me, but I got suspicious and ended the relationship before it went too far. How did you notice? Emily asked. He was too interested in my assets, kept asking about my financial situation, and he never had money to pay the bills when we went out. Always had some excuse. I'm glad you caught on in time, Emily said. That's why what you did today was so important, Mrs. Barbara continued. Many women will hear your story and know what to look for. That evening, Emily had a long talk with Margaret. Grandma, I'm sorry for putting you in this situation, she said. My dear, you have nothing to apologize for, Margaret replied. You were the victim of a very well-planned scheme, and more importantly, you had the courage to face it when you discovered the truth. I just wish I'd realized sooner. Emily, your grandfather Richard always said, it's not how many times you fall that matters, but how many times you get back up. You got back up in a way I never thought possible. Margaret took her granddaughter's hands. You turned one of the worst moments of your life into a chance to help others. That's wisdom, my dear. That's strength of character. I learned from you, Grandma. You always taught me to do what's right, even when it's hard. And you learned well, Margaret smiled. Now tell me about this foundation you want to start. Emily explained her plans in detail. She wanted to create a center offering psychological support for victims of emotional scams, free legal guidance and educational programs to teach women how to spot signs of abusive or fraudulent relationships. It's a beautiful project, Emily, and I want to help, Margaret said. Grandma, you don't have to. I want to. I'll leave a significant part of my inheritance to this foundation. It's the best way to honor your grandfather's memory and ensure our family keeps making a difference in people's lives. Emily hugged her grandmother tightly. Even amid betrayal and disappointment, she was discovering how much real love she still had in her life. Around midnight, the gathering began winding down. Guests said goodbye to Emily with words of encouragement and promises to support her future projects. Said Daniel when only close family remained. Are you sure you're okay? I'm okay, Daniel. Tired, hurt, but okay. And for the first time in months, I feel like I can sleep in peace, she replied. What will you do tomorrow? Asked Catherine, worried about her daughter. Tomorrow I'll start rebuilding my life, Emily said firmly. I'll talk to lawyers about the case against Michael and his accomplices. I'll start working on the foundation details, and I'll try to process everything that happened. "What about your personal life?" William asked. "You can't let this experience stop you from trusting people again." "Dad, I know not all men are like Michael, but for now I'll focus on myself and my projects. When the time's right, real love will come." The next morning, Emily woke up in her home for the first time in months, feeling truly free. No more secrets, no more doubts, no more lies. She made a simple breakfast and sat on the porch to watch the sunrise. As she sipped her coffee, she reflected on the previous night. It had been painful, humiliating, and hard, but it had also been liberating. She'd faced her fears, fought for the truth, and turned her pain into purpose. Her phone rang. It was a message from an unknown woman. "Hi, Emily. My name is Rebecca. I heard about what happened yesterday through my cousin who was at the party. I went through something similar 2 years ago. I'd really like to talk to you about your foundation. I think I can help." It was the first of many messages Emily would receive in the coming days. Women who had gone through similar experiences, people offering help for the foundation, lawyers providing pro bono services. Her painful experience was turning into something much bigger than she had imagined. 3 months later, Emily stood in the auditorium of the new headquarters of the New Beginnings Foundation, which had been established in a beautiful building in downtown New York City. She was about to give her first official talk on emotional scams and abusive relationships. The auditorium was packed. Women of all ages were there, some accompanied by family members, others alone. They were all there because they had gone through similar experiences or wanted to learn how to protect themselves. "Good afternoon, ladies," Emily began. "My name is Emily Williams Carter, and 3 months ago, I discovered that my marriage was nothing more than an elaborate scheme to steal my family's money." She told her story in detail, explaining how she had recognized the signs, how she had discreetly investigated, and how she had decided to confront the scammers publicly. "What I want you to understand," she said, "is that it doesn't matter how smart, educated, or experienced we are. Any one of us can fall victim to this kind of scam. The important thing is knowing what to look for and having the courage to act when something feels off." During the talk, several women shared their own experiences. There were stories of men who pretended to be widowers to gain sympathy, scammers who posed as successful professionals, and schemes that lasted years before being uncovered. "Mrs. Carter," asked a woman around 70 years old, "how do we learn to trust someone again after an experience like this?" "Mrs. Shirley," Emily replied, "that's a question I ask myself every day. There's no easy answer, but I've learned that trusting again doesn't mean letting our guard down. It means trusting our instincts, asking the right questions, and not being afraid to investigate when something doesn't feel right." After the talk, many women approached Emily to speak with her privately. Some wanted to volunteer to help other victims, while others sought guidance for situations they were currently facing. "Emily," said a young woman around 25, "I think I'm going through something similar. My boyfriend always has excuses for not introducing me to his family and asks a lot of questions about my financial situation." "I'm glad you're paying attention to those signs," Emily replied. "Let's schedule a more detailed conversation for next week. I'll introduce you to our psychologist who specializes in abusive relationships." As Emily spoke with the women, Margaret watched proudly from the back of the auditorium. At 85, she had insisted on being there for the foundation's official launch. "Grandma, how was the talk?" Emily asked when she finally made her way over to Margaret. "It was beautiful, my dear. Seeing you turn your pain into strength to help others. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I couldn't have done it without my family's support, especially yours." "Nonsense. The strength was inside you all along. We just helped you find it." 6 months after the marriage that never truly happened, Emily was living a completely new life. The New Beginnings Foundation had helped over 200 women identify and escape fraudulent relationships. 3 additional branches were being planned in different cities across the United States. Michael, Samantha, and Jason had been convicted of fraud and document forgery. Michael received 4 years in prison, Samantha got 3.5 years, and Jason was sentenced to 3 years. Eleanor only received a judicial warning for cooperating with the authorities and being a victim of coercion. Eleanor, in turn, had become one of the foundation's main speakers. sharing her experience from the other side of the scam and helping people understand how criminals recruit accomplices. "Emily," she said during one of their regular meetings, "you saved my life too. If it weren't for you, I would have kept going down that path until something much worse happened." "Eleanor, you saved yourself when you chose to tell the truth," Emily replied. That took courage. On a typical Wednesday, Emily was in her office at the foundation when Daniel walked in with a strange look on his face. "Em, you won't believe what just happened," he said. "What is it?" "Remember Detective Frank, the investigator you hired?" "Of course, why?" "He just called. He found out Michael was being investigated for similar scams in 3 other cities, and that there are at least 8 more women who fell victim to the same scheme over the last 10 years. Emily was shocked. 8? How is that possible? Apparently he and Samantha have been running this scam systematically for over a decade. You weren't the first, and you wouldn't have been the last. My God, Daniel. Imagine how many families were destroyed. That's why what you did was so important, Em. You didn't just save yourself. You saved so many other women who could have been victims in the future. That night, Emily lay awake thinking about Michael's other victims. How many women had believed the same lies? How many families had been deceived? How many hearts had been broken? She decided it was time to expand the Foundation's work even further. She wanted to create a national network to share information about known scammers and help victims across the country. The next day, she called several of the women who had been victimized by Michael in previous years. She wanted to hear their stories, understand their experiences, and invite them to join the Foundation's efforts. "Hello, is this Rebecca? Is this—" she said over the phone. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Emily from the New Beginnings Foundation. I got your contact through the investigation into Michael Roberts Johnson." There was silence on the other end. You were his victim too?" Rebecca asked, her voice trembling. "I was. And I found out there are many other women in the same situation. I'd like to talk to you about creating a support network for all of us." "Oh my God, yes. I felt so alone for so long. I thought I was the only one foolish enough to fall for that scam." "Rebecca, you weren't foolish. You were a victim of very experienced criminals. And together, we'll make sure they don't do this to anyone else." One by one, Emily managed to contact all of Michael's known victims. Some were still too traumatized to talk about it, but most were eager to turn their pain into action. A year after the fake marriage, Emily organized the first national conference for survivors of emotional scams. Women from across the United States traveled to New York City to share their stories and discuss ways to prevent future cases. "Ladies," Emily said in her opening speech, "we are not victims. We are survivors, and as survivors, we have a responsibility to protect other women." The event lasted 3 days and resulted in the creation of a national support network with representatives in 15 states. During the conference, Emily met Dr. Andrew Parker, a psychologist specializing in emotional trauma recovery. He had traveled from Los Angeles specifically to learn about the Foundation's work. "Emily, the work you're doing here is revolutionary," he said. "You're changing how society views this type of crime." "Thank you, Dr. Andrew. We're just trying to make sure other women don't go through what we did." "Can I make a suggestion?" he asked. "Of course. I'd like to propose a partnership between my clinic in Los Angeles and the Foundation. We can offer specialized psychological care for victims of emotional scams and train other professionals to do the same." Emily was thrilled by the proposal. It was exactly the kind of expansion she had been dreaming of. Over the following months, Emily and Andrew worked together developing care protocols and educational materials. They spent long hours discussing complex cases, debating recovery strategies, and planning new projects. "Andrew," Emily said during one of their work sessions, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Why did you get interested in this kind of work? It seems very specific." Andrew sighed. "My sister was the victim of a similar scam 5 years ago. She never fully recovered. She still struggles with trusting people, with relationships. When I heard about your work, I thought maybe I could help other women have a different outcome." Emily was touched by his sincerity. "I'm so sorry about your sister. How is she now? Better, but still recovering. Actually, she'd love to meet you. She thinks she could learn from your experience. Of course, I'd love to meet her. 2 weeks later, Andrew brought his sister, Susan, to meet Emily. Susan was a shy, 40-year-old woman, still visibly fragile from her ordeal. "Susan, it's so nice to meet you," Emily said, greeting her warmly. "The pleasure is mine, Emily. Andrew has told me all about your work. You're an inspiration." "Thank you. Would you like to talk about your experience? Sometimes it helps." Susan shared her story. She had been deceived by a man posing as a doctor who took her life savings. Unlike Emily, she hadn't recovered the money or seen the scammer punished. "What hurts the most," Susan said, "isn't even the money. It's the feeling that I was a fool." "Susan, you weren't a fool," Emily said firmly. "You were the victim of a malicious person who took advantage of your kindness and trust." "But the signs were there. I should have noticed." "Yes, the signs were there. But these criminals are very good at hiding them or giving convincing explanations. That's why we exist now, to teach women to recognize those signs sooner." In the following months, Susan became an active participant in the Foundation's activities. She started by attending support sessions, then volunteered at events and eventually became one of the Foundation's advisors. "Emily," she said one day, "working here has given me purpose again. I feel like my bad experience can now help others." That's exactly it, Susan, turning our pain into strength to help others. During this time, Emily and Andrew developed a deep friendship based on the work they did together. They spent hours discussing cases, planning projects, and talking about their dreams for the Foundation's future. "Emily," Andrew said one day, "can I ask you a personal question?" "Go ahead." "Have you ever thought about being in a relationship again?" "It's been almost 2 years since, Emily smiled. "Of course I have, but I'm very cautious now. And honestly, I'm so focused on the Foundation's work that I don't have much time for relationships." "I understand. But you can't let what happened with Michael stop you from being happy again, right?" "I know. And when the time is right, it will happen naturally. For now, I'm fine like this." 2.5 years after the fake marriage, the New Beginnings Foundation had become a national reference for prevention and support for victims of emotional scams. Emily had been invited to give lectures at universities, appear on TV shows, and advise authorities on creating stricter laws against this type of crime. One Tuesday morning, she was in her office preparing a presentation when Daniel walked in with a serious expression. I need to tell you something," he said. "What is it now?" she asked, suspecting it was about Michael. "We got a call from the prison where Michael is serving his sentence. He wants to talk to you." Emily stopped what she was doing. "He wants to talk to me. Why?" "According to his lawyer, he wants to apologize and give you information about other scams he pulled. Apparently he's remorseful and wants to cooperate with the authorities." "Daniel, this could just be another one of his manipulations." "It could, but the information he has might help many other victims. What do you think?" Emily thought for a moment. "I'll talk to him, but not alone. I want you and Dr. Andrew to come with me, and I want everything recorded." A week later, Emily sat in a prison visitation room, separated from Michael by a glass partition. He had lost a lot of weight and looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2.5. "Emily," he said through the intercom, "thank you for coming." "What do you want, Michael?" she asked directly. "I want to apologize. I know I don't deserve it, and I know it probably means nothing coming from me, but I needed to say it." "Fine, you've said it. Anything else?" Michael was taken aback by her coldness. "Emily, I know I did terrible things, but I want you to know that during our relationship, there were moments when my feelings were genuine." "Michael, I don't care if your feelings were genuine or not. You destroyed 2 years of my life based on lies. You used my family, manipulated people who welcomed you with kindness. Your apologies don't change that." "I know, but I want to help make things right. I have information about many other scams Samantha and I pulled. I can help you find more victims." "That I'll accept. Send all the information through your lawyer, but I don't want any more personal contact with you." "Emily, please." "No, Michael. You had your chance to be a decent person, and you chose to be a criminal. Now face the consequences." Emily stood up to leave. "Wait," Michael shouted. "How did you figure everything out? I thought I had planned it perfectly." Emily turned to him one last time. "Michael, you completely underestimated the intelligence of the women you chose as victims. You thought we were all naive and easy to manipulate. That was your biggest mistake." And she walked out without looking back. Outside the prison, Andrew was waiting for her. "How did it go?" he asked. "Exactly as I expected. He's still trying to manipulate, pretending to be remorseful. But the information he promised could be useful." "Are you okay?" "I'm great. Seeing him made me realize how much better off I am without him in my life. I don't even feel angry anymore. Just nothing." "Is that good or bad?" Andrew asked. "It's freeing," Emily smiled. "It means I've finally completely moved past that chapter of my life." 3 years after the fake marriage, Margaret turned 88. The celebration was held at the family home with all their relatives and close friends. During the party, she gave a speech that moved everyone. "My dears," she said, "at 88 years old, I've had the privilege of seeing my granddaughter turn one of the worst experiences of her life into something wonderful that's helping thousands of people." She looked directly at Emily. "Emily, your grandfather Richard always said that people are like precious metals. They only reveal their true quality when put through fire. You've been through the fire and emerged as pure gold." Emily moved closer to her grandmother with tears in her eyes. "Grandma, everything I am today is because of what you and Grandpa taught me." "No, dear. You always had that strength inside you. We just helped you discover it." At that same party, Andrew approached Emily during a break in the music. "Emily, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked. "Of course." They stepped out into the garden. "Emily, we've worked together for over 2 years now. We've become great friends, and He hesitated. "Andrew, what do you want to tell me?" "I've fallen in love with you," he finally said. "I know it might not be the right time, I know you're still healing, but I couldn't keep it to myself any longer." Emily stayed silent for a few moments, processing what she'd just heard. "Andrew," she finally said, "you're a wonderful man, smart, kind, dedicated. Any woman would be lucky to have you." "But," he asked, sensing a but coming, "but I'm not ready for a relationship yet. What happened with Michael changed me in ways I'm still figuring out. I need to be sure I can trust again, that I can love again without fear." Andrew nodded, clearly disappointed but understanding. "I get it, Emily, and I'll wait. Not for an answer, but because you deserve all the time you need. Andrew, you can't put your life on hold for me. If someone special comes along, they won't," he said with a sad smile. "Because the special person is already here. You." In the months that followed, Andrew kept working with the foundation, as if nothing had happened. He stayed professional and friendly, never pressuring Emily or bringing up his feelings. Emily, in turn, started noticing his gestures more, how he always cared for her well-being, respected her boundaries, never tried to control or manipulate her. 4 years after the fake marriage, during the 3rd National Survivors Gathering, Emily was giving her annual speech when she spotted Andrew at the back of the auditorium. He'd traveled just to be there as he did every year. "And to close," she said, "I want you all to remember this. Our experience with con artists doesn't define who we are. It doesn't define our ability to love or trust. It only means we went through something hard and came out stronger." After the speech, Emily went up to Andrew. "Thank you for being here," she said. "I wouldn't miss it. You shine brighter every year." "Andrew, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you never push me? Why didn't you ever try to convince me to give you a chance?" Andrew thought for a moment. "Because if I did, it'd just be another form of manipulation. And you've been through that. You deserve someone who respects your choices and your time." "What if I'm never ready?" "Then I'll still have had the privilege of knowing you and working beside you. That's already more than most people get in life." That night, Emily lay awake thinking about their conversation. She realized she hadn't thought about Michael or the betrayal in a long time. Her life was full of purpose, full of people who truly loved her. And she realized something else. She was ready to try again. The next morning, she called Andrew. "Andrew, do you have dinner plans tonight?" she asked. "No. Why?" I'd like to invite you to dinner, not as co-workers, as a date." There was silence on the other end. "Emily, are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm sure. 4 years is enough time to understand that fear can't rule my life forever. So, yes, I'd love to have dinner with you." Their first date was at a simple restaurant near the foundation. They talked about everything: work, family, dreams, fears. For the first time in years, Emily felt completely at ease in a man's company. "Andrew," she said during dessert, "can I tell you something?" "Of course." "When Michael proposed to me, I said yes right away. I didn't think, I didn't question it, I had no doubts. Now I realize that wasn't love. It was an illusion." "And now?" he asked gently. "Now I know the difference between someone who wants to win me over and someone who wants to know me. Between someone who sees me as a trophy and someone who sees me as a person. Between someone who wants something from me and someone who wants to share a life with me." Andrew smiled. "And which category do I fall into? You're someone who for 2 years has shown me who you really are, who respected my boundaries, supported my dreams, and never tried to change who I am. You're real, Andrew, and I want to see what this can become." They took their time dating, building their relationship on the solid foundation of the friendship they already had. Andrew knew Emily's story in detail and knew exactly how to support her during moments of insecurity. "Emily," he said one evening, 6 months after their first date, "I want you to know I'm in no rush. We can go at your pace." "Andrew, thank you for being so patient, but I don't want our relationship to be ruled by the ghosts of my past. I trust you." "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. For the first time in years, I feel safe to love again." 5 years after the sham marriage with Michael, Emily stood at the altar once more. But this time, everything was different. She had known Andrew for 3 years. They'd been dating for a year and a half, and they'd built a relationship based on respect, trust, and real love. The ceremony was simple, held in the small chapel at Margaret's house, with only close family and friends. There was no pomp, no extravagance, just 2 people who genuinely loved each other, committing to one another. "Emily," Andrew said in his vows, "you taught me that true love isn't about winning someone over, it's about choosing that person every day. I promise to choose you every day of my life." "Andrew," Emily replied, "you restored my faith in true love. I promise to build a life with you based on honesty, respect, and real partnership." Margaret, now 90, sat in the front row with tears of joy in her eyes. After everything the family had been through, seeing Emily truly happy was the greatest gift she could receive. "You may now kiss," said the priest officiating the ceremony. The kiss was gentle, full of promises and a future built on solid ground. During the garden reception, Eleanor approached Emily. "Emily, thank you for inviting me," she said. "Eleanor, you're part of this story. Your courage to tell the truth was crucial to everything that came after. Seeing you so happy, I feel like things have finally fallen into place as they should. For all of us, Eleanor, you've also rebuilt your life with honesty and dignity." Daniel gave a speech at the reception. "My sister went through one of the worst experiences anyone can have in a relationship, but she didn't let that experience define her. She used her pain to help others and has now found someone who truly deserves her." He turned to Andrew. "Andrew, you're not just gaining an amazing wife, you're gaining a family that will always protect and support you." "Thank you, Daniel, and I promise to take care of her the way she deserves." During their honeymoon at a simple mountain inn, Emily and Andrew talked about the future. "Andrew, I want to keep working with the foundation," she said. "Of course. I would never ask you to give up something so important. And I want to expand it even further. There's so much work to be done. We'll do it together. Our honeymoon may end, but our partnership in life and work is just beginning." 6 years after the fake marriage, Emily was pregnant with their first child. She and Andrew had decided to start a family and were overjoyed about the baby's arrival. "What do you want to name them?" Andrew asked, gently touching Emily's belly. "If it's a boy, Richard, after my grandfather. If it's a girl, Margaret, after my grandmother. Perfect names to honor the people who taught you about real love and dignity." Margaret, now 91, was deeply moved by the arrival of her first great-grandchild. "Emily," she said one day, "seeing you build a family with a man who truly loves you is the fulfillment of all my dreams. Grandma, thank you for never giving up on me, for teaching me that I deserve real love. My dear, true love always comes. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it starts as friendship first, but it always comes to those with an open heart who never stop believing." When the baby was born, a beautiful girl named Margaret, the whole family gathered to meet her. It was a moment of pure joy, a far cry from the dark days they had lived through years before. "She's perfect," Andrew said, holding his daughter for the first time. "She'll grow up knowing what real love is from day one," Emily said, watching her husband with their child. The New Beginnings Foundation continued to grow. By the time Margaret turned 7, the foundation had helped over 5,000 women across the United States. Emily had become a national figure in preventing emotional scams and abusive relationships. "Mom," Margaret asked one day, "why do you help so many women?" Emily thought for a moment before answering, "Because once a very bad person tried to trick me and hurt me, but I found out the truth and protected myself. Now I teach other women how to protect themselves too." "And Daddy, is he good?" "Daddy is very good, sweetheart. He truly loves me and always protects us." "How do you know he's good?" "Because he never tries to control me, never lies to me, and always supports my dreams. And most of all, he makes me feel safe and loved every day." On the 10th anniversary of the fake marriage, Emily organized a special event at the foundation. It was a celebration of everything built from that painful experience. 10 years ago, she told the packed audience, "I thought my life was over. I discovered the man I loved was deceiving me in a cruel and elaborate way. Today, looking back, I realized that day wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning of my real life." She glanced at Andrew and Margaret in the front row. "Now I have a husband who truly loves me, a wonderful daughter, a close-knit family, and work that gives my life meaning. And all of this was only possible because I had the courage to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. Sometimes," she continued, "the worst things that happen to us lead us to the best places in our lives, but only if we have the courage not to become permanent victims of our circumstances." After the event, the family gathered at home for a simple dinner. Margaret, the grandmother, now 95, was frailer, but still sharp and engaged. "Emily," she said, "I want you to know I'm the proudest grandmother in the world." "Why, Grandma?" "Because you turned your greatest pain into your greatest strength. You didn't let one person's cruelty define how you see the world. You kept believing in love, in kindness, in the possibility of starting over. I learned from you, Grandma." "No, my dear, you always had that strength. I just reminded you it was there." Margaret looked at her great-granddaughter, who was playing on her father's lap. "And now you're passing that strength on to a new generation. It's the cycle of life renewing itself beautifully." 2 years later, Margaret, the grandmother, passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 97. Her funeral was a celebration of a life well lived, full of love, wisdom, and dignity. During the funeral, Emily gave a moving speech. "My grandmother taught me that life isn't about avoiding storms, it's about learning to dance in the rain. She taught me that dignity isn't bought, sold, or lost. She taught me that true love is worth waiting for." She looked at Andrew and little Margaret. "And most of all, she taught me that our family is our foundation, our safe harbor, our strength. Today I promise these lessons will be passed on to my daughter and to the future generations of our family." After the funeral, Andrew found Emily in the garden, gazing at the stars. "How are you?" he asked, embracing her from behind. "Sad, but grateful. Grandma had a full life and gave me everything I needed to build my own. She was an incredible woman." "She was, and I want to be for Margaret what she was for me." "You already are, Emily. You already are." 15 years after the sham marriage, Emily was preparing a speech for the 50th anniversary of the New Beginnings Foundation when she received an unexpected call. "Hello, Emily. This is Public Defender Ellen Foster. I'm calling because we have a situation here that could use your expertise." "What happened?" We've uncovered a ring running scams similar to what you experienced. We've identified over 50 victims, but we believe there are many more. Could you help us? Of course, when can I come? Tomorrow, if possible. The women are deeply traumatized, and we think hearing your story might help them. The next day, Emily stood in a room with 20 women of varying ages, all victims of the same emotional scam. Ladies, she began, I know you're all going through a very difficult time. I know you feel ashamed, betrayed, broken. I've been there too. She told her story once more, but this time focusing on recovery, rebuilding, and the possibility of a full life after trauma. What I want you to understand, she said, is that this isn't your fault. You were victims of skilled criminals, and most importantly, your lives aren't over. You can rebuild, you can be happy again, you can trust again. One woman, around 60, raised her hand. Miss Emily, how do we learn to trust again after something like this? Miss Barbara, Emily replied, it's not easy, it takes time. But trust comes back gradually when we realize not everyone is like those who hurt us, when we learn to recognize warning signs, when we surround ourselves with people who truly love us. Did you remarry? Another woman asked. I did. To a wonderful man I met during my recovery, a man who respected me, gave me time, showed me through actions who he really was. And how did you know he was different? He never pressured me, never asked about money, never tried to control or change me, and most of all, he met me at my worst and still chose to stand by me, supporting me without asking for anything in return. By the end, many women approached Emily to thank her and ask for guidance. It was always moving to see how her story could give hope to others in similar situations. On the way back home, Emily reflected on how her life had completely changed since that terrible day when she discovered Michael's betrayal. What had begun as the worst experience of her life had become the foundation for a meaningful life, full of purpose and true love. When she arrived home, she found Andrew helping Margaret, now 9 years old, with her homework. How was your day? Andrew asked, kissing her. Emotional. 20 more women who will rebuild their lives with our help. Mom, Margaret said, did you help more women today? I did, sweetheart. Why do people do bad things to other people? It was a tough question for a 9-year-old, but Emily decided to answer honestly. Some people make bad choices, Margaret. They choose to be dishonest instead of honest, to hurt instead of help. But for every bad person, there are many good ones. And our choice is to be among the good people. Like Daddy? Exactly like Daddy. And like you'll be when you grow up. I want to help women like you do, Mom. And you'll be able to if you want. But first, you need to grow up well, study, and learn about the world. Most importantly, learn to tell the good people from the bad ones. That night, after Margaret went to sleep, Emily and Andrew talked on the porch. Andrew, sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd never found out the truth about Michael, she said. Do you think you'd be happy? He asked. No. He probably would have kept deceiving me for years, stealing from me, leaving me devastated when he finally revealed his true intentions. I would have lost so much more than I did. And you wouldn't have started the foundation. Exactly. And I wouldn't have helped thousands of women. And maybe I never would have truly known you. Why do you say that? Because if I'd stayed married to him, you'd just be a professional working with us. We never would have developed our friendship, our trust, our love. Andrew thought about it. It's strange how something so bad can lead to such good things, he said. That's life, Andrew. We don't always understand the plans when things happen. Sometimes we only see it when we look back and realize how everything connected. 20 years after the sham marriage, Emily celebrated the 20th anniversary of the New Beginnings Foundation. The event was held at the same hotel where her wedding reception with Michael was supposed to take place. Is this intentional? Andrew asked when she chose the venue. It's symbolic, she replied. I want to show how we turned a place of pain into one of celebration and hope. The event gathered over 500 people, survivors helped by the foundation, professionals working to prevent emotional scams, authorities, family, and friends. During her speech, Emily reflected on the Foundation's 20 years of work. Over the past 2 decades, our foundation has helped more than 15,000 women identify, escape, or recover from emotional scams and abusive relationships. We've built a nationwide support network with representatives in every state across the United States. She paused to let the numbers sink in. But what makes me proudest isn't the statistics, it's the stories. The women who regained their self-worth, who learned to trust again, who found true love, who rebuilt their lives stronger and wiser. She looked at Andrew and Margaret, now 14, in the front row. And I'd like to thank my family who supported me throughout this journey. My husband Andrew, who not only stood by me personally, but became essential to the Foundation's work. And my daughter Margaret, who grew up understanding the importance of helping others. Margaret smiled proudly. She had grown up listening to her mother's stories and already showed interest in continuing the family's work when she was older. During the party, several women approached Emily to share how the Foundation had changed their lives. "Ms. Emily," said a young woman around 25 years old, "5 years ago, I attended one of your lectures at my university. At the time, I was in a relationship that left me confused and insecure. Your words helped me realize I was being manipulated. I left that relationship and now I'm happy and independent." "That's wonderful, dear. And how are you doing now?" "I'm finishing my master's in psychology and want to work helping other women, just like you do." "That's marvelous. The Foundation always needs dedicated professionals." Another woman, around 50, also wanted to talk. "Emily, 10 years ago I fell victim to a scam similar to yours. I came to the Foundation broken, with no money and no self-esteem. Today I oversee one of our regional branches and help other women every day." "Rebecca!" Emily recognized her. "How are you?" "I'm great, and next week I'm getting married again, to a wonderful man I met volunteering at the Foundation." "What wonderful news! You deserve all the happiness in the world. That's why your work is so important, Emily. You don't just help us recover from trauma, you give us back our hope." At the end of the night, as the party was winding down, Eleanor approached Emily. She was now 75, but still active as a speaker for the Foundation. "Emily, I want to thank you once again for changing my life," she said. "Eleanor, you changed your own life. I just gave you an opportunity. You offered me forgiveness when I didn't deserve it. You gave me a second chance when I had lost all hope. And you taught me it's never too late to do the right thing. And you proved that people can change when they truly want to. These 20 years working at the Foundation have been the best of my life. I feel like I'm finally using my talents for something that truly matters." When everyone had left, Emily, Andrew, and Margaret remained alone in the hall. "Mom," Margaret said, "when I grow up, I want to continue this work." "Are you sure, sweetheart? It can be emotionally heavy at times." "I'm sure. I want to protect women like you did. I want everyone to have the chance to find true love like you did with Dad." Andrew embraced the 2 most important women in his life. "You 2 are the bravest people I know," he said. "Why brave?" Margaret asked. "Because courage isn't the absence of fear, my dear. Courage is feeling afraid and doing the right thing anyway. Your mother was afraid to face the truth, but she did. She was afraid to trust again, but she did. And now you want to follow in her footsteps, even knowing it won't be easy." That night at home, Emily reflected on the 20 years that had passed since that terrible, transformative day. She had built a life she could never have imagined. A happy marriage, a wonderful daughter, meaningful work that helped thousands of people. "Andrew," she said, "do you think Michael ever truly regrets what he did?" "Why are you thinking about him?" Andrew asked, surprised. "I don't know. Maybe because today, seeing everything we've built from that experience, I wonder if he understands what he lost." "Emily, people like Michael don't think in terms of real relationships. To them, people are just tools to get what they want. I doubt he's capable of understanding what he lost." "You're right, and honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that something beautiful came from that horrible experience. It's true. And do you know what the best revenge is against someone who tries to destroy you? What? To live a full and happy life, to prove they couldn't break you, that you're stronger than they ever imagined." Emily smiled. "Then I've had my complete revenge," she said. "Completely," Andrew agreed, kissing her. The next morning, Emily woke with a sense of perfect peace. She looked at Andrew sleeping beside her, listened to the sounds of Margaret getting ready for school, and caught the scent of coffee the housekeeper had prepared. It was an ordinary morning, in an extraordinary life. A life built on the ashes of betrayal but now shining with true love, clear purpose, and endless hope. She got up quietly and went to the window. The sun was rising over New York City, bathing the city in golden light. It was a new day, full of possibilities, people to help and love to give and receive. Michael had tried to steal her future. Instead, he had unknowingly given her the greatest gift of her life, the chance to discover her true strength, find genuine love, and make a difference in the lives of thousands of people. The end of the story. Now tell us, what did you think of this story? Do you believe Emily made the right choices? How would you react in a similar situation? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.